Winter is fast approaching, making this the perfect time of year to go and reflect on our snowboarding, go and set our goals and see which areas we want to improve. That's why I'm really excited for this video where I'm going to break down some of my raw snowboarding because I learned a lot since this winter season that I'm really excited to go and implement and share with you in this video. So we'll go and start with this backside 180. This is a pretty smooth trick, good in the air, good control, but there's ways it can be even better, primarily on the in run. Notice how as I'm doing this heel side approach, my angle is getting more intense right here at the last second. This isn't too ideal because my upper body isn't coming with me and my board's too angled to actually do a clean line. I'd come off the jump. This is going to make it so I need to use a more aggressive upper body shift, and we can really see that the upper body sort of closed off, the legs are here, and we're getting this sort of V shape. We don't really want this V shape because it means our weight's really offset from our board, and you can see how far away my upper body is from my snowboard. I do a good job of controlling it, but look at how much distance my feet are traveling to get into this position. This is making it so my upper body's way more leaned over than it should be. And a really secret key for a backside 180 is making sure that your spot is out looking forward. If you have your spot going and throwing it like a spin on a back one, you're not going to be able to do that constant spot. So that's where I do a really good job, is keeping my spot forward. But it would be so much better if my hips and board were all angled slightly here. That'd make it so I could pop with more range of motion while keeping my head in the same position. And that's going to be something we see in my riding throughout this video, is my setup carves actually need a lot of work. And that's one of the things I'm most excited to implement. Here we have a couple of rails, and my rails are not my strongest part of my snowboarding, but they're pretty solid. So we didn't do too many rails this day because it was pretty sticky in the cold conditions, but I figured we'd go and show the mechanics at use here. So this is a cab one on, and the really important thing I want you to pay attention to here is how I maintain this upper body arc the whole time for my riding. And I have my hips shifted back in order to maintain that tail pressure. This makes it so I can go and get onto the rail with very minimal movement and see how my upper body's hardly changing in angle at all. And then since I'm landing in this strong angle, that's the same angle I want to take off, jump in, it's really easy to then go and channel that momentum through. Channeling it all the way, and you can see the arms are slowly continuing that rotation. So then when I pop off, exactly the same thing. Angle in the upper body, weight shifted to that back foot, sliding off and getting that clean exit. And then this is a switchboard same way, and it's basically exactly the same trick, just a little bit broken up. So a big issue people have when they're doing their board slides is they're coming up and they'll really go and pop with their body. But all you really need to do is maintain that tail pressure. So look at how my board's just maintaining that tail pressure, super exaggerated hinge of the upper body. That's because my upper body is preemptively in the position. It wants to be on the rail. See how stable that movement is? That's what lets me go and get this clean transition of power. And you can see on a trick like this, you don't really need to be rushing into that rotation. You have plenty of time to go and start generating it, because to get those around, you can utilize a lot of counter rotation, making them more important to just get on the rail in a strong position. And that's something I'm really going to pay attention to this year, is unlocking more strong positions for myself on the rail. So more on my front foot, and I really want to open up some like front board same ways more consistently, that kind of stuff. Coming back to this backside 360, and while this by itself is a really fantastic trick, we're still seeing some problems. And the main one being, look at this setup carve. Same problem, board taking massive angle towards the side, making it so my upper body's holding this V position. This makes it so as I transition to my toe edge, I'm doing a really big turn radius, and I'm actually letting my board go flat base for a second. So see how it's not like clean edge to edge? And that's why when I'm getting onto my toe edge, I'm sort of in this position here, where even though my upper body is open, my board's angled already towards the center of the jump. So this position's really hard to get your hips open and your chest open and keeping your board sort of angled here. And that's really what you want on every single backside spin, is to have your board angled towards that like right corner if you're regular footed, towards that left corner, because it really will open up the range of motion in your hips. So I'm not doing that here, and that's why I'm going and getting this little bit of scrub off a takeoff, not as clean as could be. What I am doing a really good job of on this backside 360 is not over snapping. that's a big misconception people have on backside 360s, that you want to be throwing it like a serious spin, but really they don't take much energy and you want to be leaving in a pretty neutral position with this range of motion of the hips. So that way you can go and channel your momentum through. See how my upper body is now channeling? This is a big jump, but it's true on smaller jumps as well. And now the next part, and this is where I have so much room to improve, my front side setup carve. So you can see it's sort of washy, buttery. We'll talk about it more. I think we have a better clip for it in a little bit, just not as solid as it could be. And that's really the important thing to keep in mind with like all of snowboarding is it's the setup, the takeoffs. These are the things that really set the trick. Once you're in the air, there's only so much you can do. So we want to try to go and minimize the components and get us as set up for success preemptively. It's also, you can do a lot of this stuff subconsciously. So like all these angles of approach here, let's go and break this one down, coming in on this heel side angle. And one thing I do really like that I'm doing here is see how my upper body's really hinged forward, and this is making it so I do a couple of things. You can't really tell, but I'm also slightly shifted towards the back leg. This makes it so I can slightly open my hips. This puts pressure onto my heel edge without needing to rely on leaning. Basically, it's keeping me over top of my board with still going and hitting the requirements of my heel edge. What's being angled to the right side, coming in with the hips open so I can go and stand up into my throw position. But watch what happens through the transition of the jump here. See how this starts increasing the angle of my legs, and my legs sort of start getting more straight here. This isn't ideal because now I'm going to have to do a big shift to re-add that bend in my legs. Now stand up. So I'm adding a whole extra dynamic in my movements as I'm going and scuffing through the transition of the jump. So that's a lot of complexity, what's going to add a lot of inconsistency. And what I really find from my setup carves is if the jumps aren't perfect and they're like massive, the combo makes me not completely confident. And you can really see why. Notice how my board is starting to like preemptively turn. This is problematic not only because it's going to set me up on this angle that's going to cause drifting, but it's also shifting my weight up to my front foot. You really want your rotation point being your back foot, but as you go and start to turn off your snowboard and start rotating through, it usually puts a little bit of pressure on that front leg, and that's going to make your front leg the rotation point. This is going to be pretty problematic if you let it go too extreme. I'm really good at shifting my weight during my throw towards my back foot, and you can see that here, upper body's angled, snapping all the way through towards that back foot, shifting it over, but this is going to make it less consistent, and we can really see it right here where the upper body's sort of angled this way, and it's making it so it's sort of getting restricted. I obviously go and get it around, no problem, but this axis of rotation just isn't quite as steezy and controlled, and that's why when I come into the landing, I'm getting this little bit of unnecessary scuff. Little cool thing on the landings, notice how as I land this backside spin, my chest is actually a little bit open. You generally want to have your chest a little bit open whenever landing like a backside 360, backside 720, because it's going to give you room in your upper body to disperse that rotation. Where if you landed like completely 90, you're not going to be able to deal with anything if you're like over rotating coming to the landing. It's going to make it more likely that you wash out on your toe edge. So that's why even if I under rotate and don't land perfect, I'm able to take that upper body and channel it through without actually losing that edge traction. For this little pop here, I actually am really planning on getting my method a lot better this year. I think that will be a really fun side mission. And this one's pretty good. You can see that I get the grab, I get pretty good extension, but this isn't as good as like someone like Mark McMorris because I'm keeping this bend in my legs. The only way to really get the extension out of your legs on a method is to go and get a really good takeoff, but it's not the same takeoff you'd want to do as a straight air. So my issue here is I'm actually too far over top of my snowboard, and you can see I'm preemptively reaching down for my board. For a method, you actually want to be sort of leaning forward this way. So when you go and come up, your body goes and gets angled off the jump in this direction. So this method isn't quite ideal because my upper body is completely vertical. Even though I'm getting really good extension, I'm getting really good pull for the legs, I'm not able to go and get that fully extended leg position, and I'm not getting that sort of like drifty side angle arc in the upper body. I'm going to play around and figure out how to do that better, But this method felt really good. It's just not on par with some of the greats, and a method's a serious flex trick, so it's something that I want to go and get figured out. Here we have a backside 540, and we can see a little bit of under rotation scuffing. And this is something that you want to keep in mind whenever you're landing back coming into the landing, and that's making sure that your rotation point is set over the balls of your feet. Because here, if I under rotated and my rotation was set like over my heels, I could clip and be in a serious bad situation. But what you'll see in this video is under rotating isn't really an issue with me because of the body mechanics I'm using to generate the spins and maintain the spins. It makes it so it's a pretty safe space. Why did this backside 540 get under rotated? There's a couple of reasons. First, we can see that it's not the best takeoff, a little bit slidey, a little bit disconnected. This is happening for the same reasons as the other, and that's my hips aren't open here, my board's slightly angled. If you're closed off hips, closed off shoulders, and your board's coming towards the center, you're not going to have that platform to get that extra little bit of range of motion, and it's going to make it really inconsistent on getting that timing through the pull. And that's why we're seeing this little bit of pre-spin. Because I'm too connected in the hips, upper body, I don't have that disconnect to go and channel the spin while keeping the board straight, and that's just going to make it really inconsistent with speed. Then I'm reaching for the grab a little bit early. Doesn't really matter too much on this one, but it was just that little bit of lack of speed from that takeoff that made it so I came up shorter than expected, and that's why the under rotation came in. There's also an argument to be made that I'm going and doing the spot a little bit too dramatic downhill. This spot would have worked a lot better if I went yard, but because I come close to the knuckle, I would have been better off looking over here. And this is a big reason why I'm landing a little bit too leaned. And that's why we're getting this sort of scuff, scuff, scuff that never looks good and doesn't feel like you stomped a trick after that. Here we got a cab undie, and this trick I really like and is actually a really good example of how little you need to do on inverts on a snowboard. If you think about doing a backflip on a trampoline or something, it doesn't take much juice. A jump even less, because you have the mechanics throwing you up in the air, plus you have the ability to like lean back a little bit. There's just a lot of things going to make you cheat this rotation. So I want to go and just emphasize how little my upper body is moving through this throw. So this is because when I go and do this trick, I actually get super accelerated as I go and pull into that stalefish grab. So I want to go and make sure to snap slower, knowing I'm going to get that little bit of acceleration. For anyone struggling with like any of these front cork 5 axis of rotation, I can guarantee it's because as you're snapping it, you're overextending your body, making it so you're in a straight angle over your heels. That'll set your rotation point being over your heels, but we need to make sure our rotation's over the balls of our feet. So in this situation and every situation with a pro rider, watch as they do their inverts. Notice how I'm keeping this hinge in my upper body, so my center of mass, even though I'm leaning back too much, I might add, I'm still having my weight set over the balls of my feet. That makes it so as I pop up and pull through, my rotation is over the balls, and that's going to make it so as I land, I'm landing in that over the balls position. If you were completely straight off the takeoff, you'd have to try readjust into this landing position. So if you're ever confused on a trick and not sure why it's not working, remember this rule. You want to be taking off in a position. Okay, you want to be setting up in a position that you want to be taking off in, and you want to be taking off in a position you want to be landing in. Basically, you're trying to just keep the same upper body athletic hinge throughout the full range of motion. This is going to be another spot I have a huge area to improve, and that is my switch takeoffs. You can see the edge isn't really locked in here, upper body slightly rotated forward, hips open. This isn't too problematic alone, but it makes it so I have a very small range of motion to snap. When you have a small range of motion to snap, we'll go and get into why it's so problematic. But this is going to be something that I'm like training on throughout the summer, and why it's so important to notice now, because that micro muscle memory, you're not going to make big improvements when actually trying the trick on snow. So here we got a frontside 7 nose, and this is actually pretty solid, but let's see what we could do to improve it. So first thing I'll really note here is, see how when I'm going in on my toe edge, I'm in a pretty tall posture, and I'm relying on leaning forward quite a bit. Then as I go and switch to my heel edge, I'm going and squatting down more. So this is making it so I'm adding an up and down mechanic to my edge transition, but I can completely remove just by adding this more front hinge in my upper body and more bend in my legs preemptively. So that's going to streamline it. And the other thing that I really want to notice here is I'm closing off my upper body too soon. See how my upper body's closed off before I'm fully set on my heels? This is going to make it so my head starts pulling and leading the rotation. See how my board's starting to rotate and my upper body's rotating, chest is rotating, even though the arm's pulled back? This is just because this is a very awkward position to hold, and it's going to make you naturally start rotating off the jump. There's no solution for that except for just delaying your motions. If I would have just delayed how long it took me to let go and get that wound up position, it would have given me a better platform to pop off of, but would have put me higher, and a higher platform with more air is going to give you better control. That let me come into the landing a little bit cleaner. Here you can see again though, as I'm rotating, I'm doing a really fantastic job of keeping my weight set over the balls of my feet, hinge of upper body, rotating through, and this makes it so even though I under rotate a bit, I'm landing with that edge first, weight over, and you can see I'm almost under rotating completely 90 here. And this is something I think is really important to go and discuss. Under rotation is very normal in snowboarding. It's going to be very rare that you get the actual proper amount of rotation through any of your jumps. So you really want to be making sure to rotate in a position where you can land on that little bit of edge that will keep you safe. So here we make the correction on the back 5 and get it a lot better. Still that little bit of under rotation. I do want to try and get this out of my riding. The reason why so much under rotation is used is because you have sideways momentum when you're coming into a landing. So if you land completely straight, you have to really lock in the toes in order to go and stop it from like washing out. Where if you add this little bit of under rotation, you'll go and really kill a lot of that rotational energy coming into the landing. I want to get better at landing completely rotated and stomped each time, just because it looks so much cleaner. It probably feels a lot better. This is sort of like my filming safety mode, like I'm trying to land the trick. And let's just also remember that most of this stuff will be changed on the actual takeoff. So what are we seeing here? My upper body is in a very neutral position, like almost no opening of the hips, no opening of the chest. This is giving me almost no range of motion to work with, and then I'm artificially trying to open my chest after I'm already on the toe edge. This is going to go and put more pressure on it, make it so I'm leaning more, and you can see quite a bit of pre-spin, weight really over that front foot, reaching for the nose grab a little bit early, and then that results in just that little tickle. I feel like I save it pretty good and hit the landing relatively smooth, but we're trying to figure out how to get better. Here I make the connection and just snap it a little bit slower. Like, notice how I'm not throwing back, I'm not over snapping, it's just up in a really nice motion, relying on the mechanics of the jump and the mechanics of the grab to go and bring it around, making it really controlled and nice. Now we're going to really talk about one of the main goals I have for the winter and what I'm trying to fix, and that is these cab takeoffs right here. We actually might as well just use the cab 10 that's coming up in a little bit. Just because, bigger trick, going to go and showcase the mistakes even more. This one's pretty cool, front free double grab, just coming up a little short. The snow was so slow today. Whenever you're riding and it's like really dry, cold snow, it's incredibly slow and incredibly inconsistent. Combine that with some wishy-washy takeoffs and like, look at this right here. This is not good for controlling speed. Look at how much snow I'm kicking up at this point in the transition right here. So this body posture is really bad. We're kicking up snow, we're really leaned over. Upper body has a fantastic hinge, but the legs are almost fully extended. This is a weak position, and watch what it does for my legs. My legs have to traverse so much more than my upper body. And this is making it so I'm getting this little drifting motion. And if your edge is drifting, it's not gripping. And that's making it so I don't have ability to fully open my hips here, and I'm opening my chest independently. What happens if you open your chest without having your full hips open is it's going to make it so your board actually wants to start turning this way, and your weight gets set more over the front foot. So let's just go and talk about how I'm planning on fixing this quick. The fix is really easy, really simple, but in practice, it takes a little bit to figure out. And basically, it's going and being in a way more squatted position here over in this direction, so that way I can take a more consistent setup carve line the whole way through the transition will leave me up in a better platform. Also, by sinking it slightly towards the back leg, it'll be easier for me to get my hips open. This will increase the range of motion, make it so my back foot's a better pivot point, give me a way better platform to generate snap off of. Because as I generate snap here, because I'm getting closed off, because I'm preemptively rotating, I can't really see what I'm doing, and that's going to make it so I'm gonna be timid putting power in. I'm also putting power in too soon, and I don't have that upper and lower body disconnection to keep the board straight, making it so the speed's going to be really inconsistent. Other than that though, the trick itself is pretty good. This is a grab I'm working on. It's a pretty funky one, and that's one of the reasons why we'll see a little bit of funk in my form, because it only works on a particular axis of rotation. But here, just go a little bit slow, didn't throw hard enough, choose your poison, and it resulted in this really nasty looking scuff. Revert, and now look at, we can really see the weakness of my front side windup. Coming in, heel edge, instantly closing off. Look at how much edge's kicking up. Look at how I'm leaning off the jump. Make it so as I snap off, I'm really drifting. I'm really not centered over my board. It gets a little nice cork axis, but when the snow is this slow, it's just impacting speed too much. So let's talk about how I'm going to get that better quick. So I'm going to add a lot more bend to the legs. I'm going to go and squat down more, and this will make it so I'm able to keep a more mellow line with a more similar position. This will also make it so I don't need to do a squat down motion here, and instead I can just do a close off. And in theory, I'll be able to get onto my heel edge just by shifting the hips back a little bit. This will let me transition from toe edge to heel edge with very minimal movement. And because of that, it should be a lot nicer of a platform to close the upper body. There's also one more thing I'm going to try to do, and that is taking my hips and trying to shift them backwards. I just sort of discovered this summer, but there's a principle in snowboarding called pedaling the board, where you're trying to get, like, in this instance, you'd be trying to get your front foot down, back foot up, whereas here you can see my board's completely up. We really want the board like twisted because it's going to make it so it holds a straighter line without as much leaning necessary. This is pretty much impossible to just do with your feet, what I've been trying to do, but I discovered if you take your front knee and twist it towards your back knee, it's going to automatically add that torsion into your board, as well as increasing the range of motion of the hips. We can't close off too much. You don't want a massive setup or wind up on a frontside spin, but I do want a little bit more range of motion because I do have a serious habit of pre-spinning right at the end here and doing it sort of like at this point. This rotation was also just a little bit too soon, so just these little things. But it's these little things that are the difference between like doing a trick and absolutely dominating a trick. Now here we have cab 10, and this one's going to be pretty cool to talk about because my cab takeoffs leave something to be desired, and I'm really looking forward to it. So first things first, what do we notice here? I'm super tall, I'm going straight at the jump, I have no gradual edge angle. And then any edge I do have is being done with leaning, and we can see that my body isn't looking in that strong, rigid, like Z-like position that I want to get on the backside spins. And when we go and transition from the toe edge here to the heel edge, we're going to see that my upper body is already starting to rotate. So as I'm getting onto my heel edge position here, upper body's rotating, and you can see I'm just not really comfortable on that heel edge. I'm too shifted towards that front foot. The reason why this is so problematic is when you're shifted towards your front foot and you go and snap your spin, it's going to make it so you do this. It's called an over snap. And when you over snap something like a cab 10, it's going to make it so instead of having upward rotation, this is true for any size spin, and if I stopped here, my momentum's throwing up and my hips are going up, everything's going up, but as soon as the rotation goes here, I'm now throwing downwards, just like I would be for like a backside spin, and that's putting it on this slight little weird cork axis. That isn't ideal. So for this, I need to get a lot more comfortable with riding with my hips actually slightly open, what sounds a little bit surprising, but it's true. I want to get hips more open in a more natural sunken back to a back leg position, squatted down way more. So that way I can do my edge transition without needing to go and rotate the upper body, hopefully getting in position with the hips out, more bend of the legs, more shifted towards that back leg will give me a more powerful platform to generate snap. Also closing off that front hip like I'm going to do on the front side, and that should make it so my max snap point, instead of being all the way over here, is limited to being right here. Adding a lot more consistency, because while this works for like a cab 10 off this jump, it works for cab 12s, probably could even do cab 14s. Once you get to really big, kicky, and consistent jumps, they really buck me. So I can only really spin proper cab on jumps that aren't kicky, and it's because of that. I do a good job controlling it, coming in, and you can see utilizing that under rotation, utilizing that spot. I am really interested in trying to add more upper and lower body disconnection for the last part of the spin, because right now I'm heavily reliant on under rotating the spins in order to go and absorb that impact and that rotational force, and you just won't get extremely clean landings like this. This is more like a contest landing. To be fair, that is the mindset when people are filming me. I'm like, I just gotta land this, so it is a bit of a safety net. But I think I could get similar results with using more upper body, lower body disconnect. We'll go and start trugging along here and just basically pointing out the examples, because that's everything I'm trying to work on with the jumps. Seems simple, and the results will be some really big, really cool tricks, but we just can't have this kind of heel side carve, this much lower body movement coming off the lip, and my jumping is going to be so much stronger. Luckily, I had the chance this year to go to Banger Park and really dial this in, and if I can even bring half of what I learned there out to the slopes, it's going to be my best season ever. But it's good to go back and look at this and remember what I'm working with, what I'm trying to rise and like get past, and that's how you become a better snowboarder. So I also think though there's some serious problems people have this time of year, where you're thinking about all the mistakes, all the places you want to improve, but it's also good to take some time and realize like you are a good snowboarder. There is components that you're good at. So like here, I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not changing every single thing about how I snowboard. Instead, there's just some small tweaks that are going to really help me in the long run. And that's something that's important, I think, coming to a winter. I personally get hit with a lot of anxiety. I'm like, can I still snowboard? Do I still got this? And then when you start thinking about all of your mistakes, that can really compound. But there's also a lot of stuff that you can do, and so, a lot of the stuff is so muscly ingrained that you'll be able to go and do it really well once the season rolls around. Just so that something else I'm going to try to fix here is, see how my front arm is sort of dropped? I want to try to lift this up. Just will make it so my rotation point is going to be easier to set. Front arm dropping just isn't very good. And then the biggest problem I was actually having with my backside spins, besides inconsistent takeoffs, is this right here. See how not this one I just almost died. And that's the speed and consistency thing. Because I'm getting this fluff, because I'm not getting perfect takeoffs, the speed is way too inconsistent. You can also see there's a lot of man-made snow in here. But like for these big jumps, perfect day, I could hardly even ride them because my setup carve wasn't strong enough to deal with the softer conditions, and the snow was too slow, so even though I was going max speed, I was scrubbing really bad. And that just goes to show that if you get a clean takeoff, it's going to make the worlds of difference. Here, look at how angled that is, really making it so it's tough to do that setup. Front hip isn't open at all. I'm really leaned forward into those legs. As I'm throwing, I'm dropping even more, starting to pre-spin, arm dropping down. And something that I just learned and I'm really excited to implement is see how my head now individually goes and pulls into the spin. So instead of having like this chest leading, my head's actually trying to pull. If you just keep the head stationary and try to like let everything come together, these rotations actually work way better. And you can really see it right here. My head is now pulling into this position. This actually makes it so I'm a little bit blind coming through 360, and it actually resulted in some pretty scary back tens for me this year and really impacted my landing because it's only really here that I'm getting a full sense of what's going on. And that's just not enough time for me to go and get my weight back over the balls of my feet. So A lot of places to improve this season, really excited for it. These are like the fundamental principles I have in mind. Just a little recap: try to get cleaner setup cars by going and utilizing more preemptive positions and increasing my effective range of motion. And then other than that, trying to clean up my arm positioning, limit my maximum snap so I go and fall into easy mistakes less often. And then that extra control will hopefully let me feel more comfortable and get better upper and lower body disconnection. So a bit of a long one, but this one's as much for me as it is for you guys. So if you enjoyed it, thanks for watching, and we'll be back at it with another video soon.